right, welcome back to The Mind of Dave. I'm your host, Dr. Dave, and with me today is an awesome friend of mine, Todd Calvert. And hello there. Just to give you a quick little intro, his LinkedIn, and what I know him as well as, he is a teller of stories and other fun stuff. So a little bit on his background. He was actually a writer, producer, and director on Comedy Central for things including The Chappelle Show, Daily Show, and South Park. Just a few things that you might have heard of. He's been a creative consultant for people like Adam Levine, Steve Carell, and Will Ferrell. But most interestingly is the life that he's lived. And these are the fun stories that we can get into, including things like how he went and lived with a tribe of cannibalistic tribe in the Amazon. So just to grab your attention a little bit. So welcome,
Todd. Good times.
Welcome. Well, so we start off this podcast. This podcast is all about people's journeys, but at the same time, too, we do like to tell stories. So what is a story associated with some favorite food or liquor or liquids that you may have? Sure.
Well, I mean, we should bring up that you sent me this.
Yes. And I bought the matching. I found out too, but go ahead.
Oh, you had the same bottle.
Yeah, I went and bought two of them so that we could share the experience together of opening this, because I've never had this before and I didn't know.
I haven't either. Yeah,
it is in the Texas section.
I was in the shower getting all gussied up for our thing, and the children came running in, banging on the door. It was like, "There's somebody at the door!" Like it was like the end of the world. And but they're like, "Oh, it's just Dave."
Yep.
So, okay, are we opening this? Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, let's open it. Love that little pop.
Okay, here we go.
And so for the people at home too, Todd and I hung out this weekend, and I'd found out that he really hadn't had rye bourbon before.
I think I've had it. I just didn't know what I was having. But it's delicious. Right. And I'm excited to try this.
Yeah,
they're in Texas, right? In Waco.
This is a Texas thing. Yeah, I wanted to get something. I hate to use the word local when it comes to liquor, because a lot of ingredients have to travel pretty far most of the times to make liquor. So
that's really good. It's like if a bourbon had an affair with Scotch.
Yeah,
and they had a baby. Then the baby looked more like the bourbon than the Scotch.
Wow,
that's good.
That is an interesting cross.
Yeah,
the bottle says that it has chocolate notes in it. I didn't taste the chocolate. Maybe, I guess, like more of a bittery chocolate.
Well, that's probably smart for them to telegraph what you're supposed to be experiencing. I mean, hell, that's smart.
Yeah, leather, tobacco, and oak, and chocolate.
Okay, so what? I lost track. I was so excited about the booze.
So a story. Just simply like, what is a favorite food, and a story attached to it, or a favorite drink. It doesn't matter.
I'll go with favorite drink. I'll go with we'll stay in this world. So bourbon. I never drank bourbon. I was like a beer guy in college. Everybody's a beer guy in college, but I was also broke as hell. So beer was, few and far between. So, there was this guy at the school. I went to school in Durango, Colorado, Fort Lewis College, great place. And there was this guy who was in our group of friends, and he drove this old beat up Jeep, and his clothes all looked like he found them. Like, did not look like a wealthy person. And, one day he called my buddy and I, and he's like, "Greg, Todd, come over to my house." So we go over to his house, and he goes, "I want you to open that closet right behind you." He's sitting on his sofa, and he's go to that closet, and I open it up, and it is full from top to bottom with cases of Jim Beam, like handles of Jim Beam. And we were like, "What?" This guy's parents owned a portion of Jim Beam, so he was just like, "You guys are not paying for booze for the rest of college." And so we would just go by his house and get like a case of Jim Beam. So we stopped.
Oh my God.
I didn't drink beer from my sophomore year on. It was just bourbon. That was it. So I I had to develop a taste of bourbon because it was the only thing I could afford.
Yeah. Well, it's a survival of the fittest, I guess.
Yeah. Now, food, I was thinking about food. I think it's not really a story, but it's more of a litmus test. And that is, I believe that, like I love Tex-Mex. I don't like Mexican food. Like, I don't like going to Mexico and eating food in Mexico. I'm not a fan. I like Tex-Mex. And cheese enchiladas are the perfect litmus test for if it's a good restaurant or not. And I'll stand by this. If their cheese enchiladas suck, everything else is going to suck. But if the cheese enchiladas are on point, you're golden. It's the same with a steakhouse. If their French fries aren't any good, the steak's going to suck.
Ooh, that's great. Mm-hmm. So now do you just travel around and order French fries and cheese enchiladas before you decide on where you're going to eat for the night?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I got to, yeah. No, I suck it up and just go in. I'm going to try it out. But if it's my first time, I will always order cheese enchiladas.
Interesting.
This is completely random, but talking about journeys, one of my favorite things to do, and I suggest this to anyone, when you're going on a road trip, do not eat two things. One, the more pickup trucks you see at a restaurant and the more beat up those pickup trucks are, the better roadside eating establishment that's going to be. And a really fun thing to do on a road trip is you only stop at places to eat that have a counter where you can eat at the counter. And you're going to meet people, and you're going to engage in conversations, and you're going to have a lot more fun than if you just go to some place where you sit at a table.
Yep, love it.
Those are my two road trip tips for you.
Road trip rules from Todd.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Very cool. All right. Well, I haven't heard that, but I mean, when you say that, growing up in Wisconsin, that's totally the case. You travel around Wisconsin and you get a little bit outside of the main city life, and you'll get into those little rural diners and all of the beat up pickup trucks, and it's like the good old fashioned homegrown, home styled comfort food types of things. And yeah, I totally get that. I'm definitely going to keep an eye out for that now.
There you go.
Well, tell me, so how does one get into the life that you've chosen? There's no easy path to eventually end up at a Comedy Central, creative writing, creative direction, producing. Let's jump back to young Todd. And what happened in young Todd's life that led to a life of comedian, writer, director, producer? Like, how does one get into that? What are your unique stories that kind of made you pivot into this?
I think my brother is also a creative. He was a vice president of game show development at MGM and whatnot, and now he makes TV shows and stuff. And he and I wrote award shows for years together. And he always says it's really true. Our family was nuts. Like, my parents are like, my mom literally, and I'm like not exaggerating. My mom is. She was a Methodist minister, for one, and for two, her hobby was she would dress up as Yes, Yes the Clown, who was this silent Christian clown, and she would go to like old folks' homes and and I love my mom. She's got the body shape of Grimace, so in a clown outfit, it was pretty thrilling. One of my favorite stories was. We grew up in a double-wide trailer. My parents had been divorced. We were sitting in the little breakfast nook, and my mom walks in, and she had a gig that morning, so she's dressed up as Yes, Yes the Clown. She's got her little nose on and the makeup and the whole deal. And I guess I'm about 13 or 14, and Brett, my brother's 9. And she walks in, and in a double-wide, the kitchen is basically a hallway with water in it, and she walks down the thing, and she opens the refrigerator, and she pulls out a gallon of milk. And you can see her thinking, and I do the same thing now, where, there was just enough where she's like, ooh, I get to drink it out of the carton. Like, I don't have to turn it in a glass. was fantastic.
It's no longer illegal. It's no longer illegal at the bottom.
I mean, milk is infinitely more delicious that way. So my mom dressed as a fucking, can I cuss?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, she's dressed as, because you got to say dressed as a fucking clown. She takes this thing of milk, the gallon of milk, and she literally pushed her nose to the side and then put the gallon of milk up to her and drank it. And the milk was bad. It had gone bad. Oh. So my mom, dressed as a clown, holds the bucket, makes a seal with her lips, and starts throwing up into the gallon of milk. And she made such a seal with her lips that the gallon was going as she was doing it. And it was horrible. It was just traumatic. And my little brother, who was 9 at the time, there was this pause. We were eating our microwave pancakes. There was this pause, and he just looks at me and goes, well, that was something. And that was the moment when I knew that Brett was going to, spend his life in comedy. And my mom was a minister, dressed as a clown. My dad was the director of a hospice, and he was very proud of the fact that he looked like Abraham Lincoln. So around February, President's Day, he would dress up and grow out his beard for Abraham Lincoln, and he would go to schools and be Abraham Lincoln. My brother tells a story of that one time he played basketball. He was in junior high basketball, and my mom came dressed as a clown, and my dad came dressed as Abraham Lincoln to, show school spirit. They thought that would be the appropriate thing to do.
The thing,
and then, dressed as a clown and dressed as Abraham Lincoln, they got in a fight in the parking lot. I mean, and my brother says, and I agree, that we were either going to work in comedy or we were going to be serial killers. It was one of those two things, because our families were just cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. So that would be the impetus of that.
That'd be the defining moment. So how does that lead up to a life of getting lost in the Amazon?
Well, my brother, once again, he and I did improv comedy. I did that for a while, just kind of randomly. We started doing it, and then he drove to. It was awesome. We had no formal training. We weren't. I don't know if you know about improv comedy, but it's a real they are serious about improv. This is serious stuff. And Brett and I are always let's just make people laugh. And so they had the Disney Cruise Lines was going to start with an improv. They're going to start having an improv group on the cruise lines. So my brother got in his truck, threw his guitar in the back, and drove to Minneapolis from Texas for the auditions. And he got on.
Whoa.
He got on the ship. So he did it for a year, and then they needed a new cast, so he was like, how about my brother? So my brother and I both got to be on Disney Cruise Lines doing improv comedy for a year, which is just magnificent for a year.
I can't imagine, is that a 7-day-a-week job where you're up there every night? Is it like Vegas where you just get kind of run over and you have to,
You do 2 shows a night, but you get, I can't remember what it was. I think we get 3 or 4 days off at a time. Every 4 days we get 3 days off, something like that. So we got a lot of time off. And I loved it because a lot of the people would just stay on the boat, and I would get off. I'd get off in Nassau, or I'd get off in Key West or different places, and I'd just go explore. I used to laugh with my brother when you get off at Nassau and you get off the cruise ship thing, you can take a right, and it's knockoff Wendy's and jewelry stores. And if you take a left, it's the bridge. And under the bridge are all these food stalls where all the locals eat, street meat. And then there's rolling dice and all this stuff. So I would take a left. He would take a right, and I'd take a left. And I just met and had such a great time with these people that are real. They're not there for the tourists. And it was just such a wonderful experience. One of my favorite things about Nassau, if you ever go to Nassau, go to the zoo. That is a definite, because it looks like some middle-aged person got a medium level inheritance and decided to open a zoo. I mean, it is just it's so bad, but so wonderful. One of my favorite things, and I used to have it on my desk. I don't have the picture now, but one of my favorite. I'm a huge fan of signs. Love funny, weird signs that aren't intentionally funny or weird. There's an auto shop right down the street where I get all my stuff done, and they have a sign on their gate leading to the back that says, "Gate must remain open or closed at all times." Fantastic sign. But the one at Nassau at the zoo is, "Only people of low intellect tease monkeys."
Yeah.
I mean,
there you go. So were you a big fanatic of, isn't that how college humor really got started? I remember in my college days of, I think college humor started off as like a internet sign. You could go on it and just endlessly scroll funny signs.
Really?
I think that's how college humor got started.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, someone can fact check me on that, but like, I remember being addicted to, it was either College Humor or another site like that was always the college students going out and finding funny signs. And this would have been
cool.
early 2000s, right? When you actually like had to be on an internet browser.
Yeah.
There wasn't cell phones yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Anyways.
Anyways, okay, so what was I talking about? How I got there? Is it how I got to the life?
Yeah. How you got to the life. So you went left. Your brother went right. You went left, and you enjoyed talking to the cultured people.
Yep. And we've both had a lot of fun. My brother's made a lot more money than me, but we've both had fun in our own little ways that we've kind of navigated around storytelling. And I think that I just recently got laid off. I was part of the big, great layoff. And it's fun because I'm, looking for a job now, and in doing so, you're kind of, when you're creating your resume and you're looking at your history and everything, it's really neat to see that. And the reason on my LinkedIn profile is that it says storyteller is that that's really the through line that I've had through my entire career.
Yep.
And I think one of the highlights of my career is I was writing the CMT Music Awards. It's a country music awards that CMT does. And of all the people that they would have to present an award was Maya Angelou. And, the old poet laureate, Cage Bird Sings, blah, blah, blah. And I was just thrilled. So thrilled that I got to write a joke for Maya Angelou. And I killed myself because I can't remember what the joke was. But in the process, I got to sit with her in her little green room and stuff and go over the joke, and just this magnificent woman, and like she just was sitting in the chair with her purple flowing robe, and it was just like, just come speak to to me. It was wonderful. So I went up, we start talking about the creative process. I'm going to tell you what she told me. At the time, I thought she just made it up on the spot, and that like I was the only person that got this knowledge, but she said it lots of times, so it's really not that special, but we'll pretend like she just said it to me.
I won't tell anyone, I promise.
We were talking about the creative process, and she said, people won't always remember what you say, but they'll always remember how you made them feel. And that's really kind of been, professionally at least, my modus operandi, in the sense that so often in business and whatnot, people think as long as you get through the exposition you're supposed to get through, then you've accomplished your goal. And
right.
What I try to infuse into that is that's actually the complete opposite, is that what you want to do is empower people to go find the information on themselves, and you want to change the way that they feel about something. And I think that has also kind of been the guiding principle through my life, is that it's about these moments and experiences and really embracing that and like sucking the marrow out of life. And I think that my brother and I grew up in a town of 300 people. And, not many people left. And it was pretty magnificent for us to be able to be the people that we were able to get out. I say get out. Now all I want to do is go back. Like all I want to do is go back in this idyllic, beautiful town. But we got out. And I think that when you're in a small town like that and your options are very limited, that when the world opens up to you, man, look out, Just go get it. Find those stories. Find those. I remember one time I was walking through Los Angeles. I used to go when I lived in Los Angeles or New York, whatever. I'd put on my headphones. This is at the time when you had to carry a Walkman or a disc.
Yeah, the big thing. Yep.
And I'd put on music and I'd just walk through these towns. I'd walk downtown, or I'd intentionally just kind of get lost. And I remember one time I was in L.A. and I was walking and there was a big like a food market, and it was just this beautiful downtown and grubby and gross and just fantastic. And it was all Asian people. It was their Chinatown. All Asian people, so I'm above them, and then there's a guy who's even above me that's walking the other way, and he's clearly homeless. No question the guy's homeless. I kind of look like I could be. This guy was definitely homeless. And we're walking like this towards each other, and right as he passes me, he's not making eye contact, and as he passes me, he looks at me and he goes, "It's all poetry." And it was just this wonderful moment that you're never going to find if you're safe about what you want your experiences to be. And I think that when you let yourself, whether it be professionally or personally, relationships, traveling, whatever it is, if you just open yourself up to those possibilities, that the world is much more interesting than you can even fathom, that I think that that's the way to live. And I think that's kind of answers your question, sort of where it comes from, is that I just have this innate's the wrong word. It just born in me from the beginning was this notion of wanting to. I don't want to create experiences that I then live through. I want the world to kind of throw it at me and me figure out how to navigate around it.
Interesting. Yeah, and it's the times that we've had. I mean, it's been endless stories of things that you and I have discussed of even the martini story in New York of getting what was it, Fritos and a martini together.
Yeah, for all the listeners, if you want the greatest combination of beverage and food, it is a dirty martini and a bag of Fritos. It is delicious.
Yep. Well, go ahead and tell that story. Can you tell that story?
Oh yeah, no, that was a great night. So I was in New York for work, and I like using I think it was called Priceline. I don't know if Priceline still does it. I think it was Priceline, where I had to pick a hotel, or buying a hotel, and you click I want this star rating, and then you get it a lot cheaper, but then they randomly pick the hotel for you. And randomly, I got the Ace Hotel, which is the cool hotel in New York. I don't fit in at all. I think I told you that the way to describe it is in the bar when I'm sitting there is there was a guy with a bird nest weaved into his head. I can't weave anything into my hair, but I mean, the guy, it was I was so out of place. This was a cool. All the music was, so I was completely out of place. So I'm sitting on this couch. And this couple sits next to me, and we just start talking, and we just start making each other laugh, making fun of the bird nest guy. And he's like, "You want to go out with us?" And I was like, "Sure, yeah, what do you want to do?" And I didn't realize it, but this guy, Wade, he used to be a professional basketball player in Australia, and then his dad imported chia seeds to the United States, and then he took over the business, and he was the world's largest importer of chia seeds. So I had no idea the guy was loaded. So we start going around New York. I mean, it was ridiculous. We literally, at one point, were at a P. Diddy party. Not something like, ooh, let's make a P. Diddy-esque party. It was literally a P. Diddy party in this basement of a bank. It was so strange. But we just were all over. We went to this one bar at the end of the night, and it was this long line trying to get in. And he just walked right to the front. And they're like, "Wait!" And they let us in. And we went to the bar. And we sat at the bar. So we're sitting there, and real fancy bar, really expensive. And somehow we start talking about, and I'm talking to the person next to me. It drives my wife crazy. I'll talk to anybody. And I'm talking to him, and somehow somehow the person ordered a martini, and I was like, oh, you know what goes good with a martini? And I was like, a bag of Fritos, and the guy looked at me like, what? Like, he was expecting to say caviar or whatever. And then somebody else was like, did you say a bag of Fritos? And I was like, oh, you have no idea. And so I got up and I went to the bodega down the street, and I just bought as many Fritos as they had. And by the time I got back, everybody had gotten dirty martinis, and I passed out bags of Fritos to these people were all millionaires. They were all millionaires. And it was fantastic. We just sat, drank dirty martinis, and ate Fritos. And I was right. I proved myself right. It's one of the best combinations of anything in the world.
Voted. New York approved.
Mm-hmm. New York rich people approved.
New York rich people approved. That is saying something for sure.
Yeah.
Well, very cool. Where do we go from here?
New York was one of those places, though. New York for me was. I don't ever need to go back to Los Angeles. We went for a vacation recently, and I hate it. LA sucks. There's wonderful pockets of beauty in LA, but getting to those pockets is not worth what you find when you get there. But New York, I've always said the difference between New York and L.A. is that in L.A. everybody's an asshole, but they pretend like they're your friend. In New York, they're just like, hey, what's up? I'm an asshole. And it's fantastic. And once you know that, it's like, oh, the guy's an asshole. So I need to, talk to him knowing he's an asshole. And I love it. So I love New York City. One of my favorite moments in New York City was a buddy of mine he's such an interesting guy. He's the brand director for, what's the Live Nation? Is that the folk? I think it's Live Nation, the people that are, do all the concerts and all that kind of stuff. He's the brand director for that.
Oh, yeah.
But that's kind of his side gig. He's my age. He's like, 49, 50. And he just decided to become a DJ. So he's now a DJ, travels all over the world as a DJ, and is also a brand director. Anyway, this guy, Ian, he's a fantastic dude. And one night he's like, you want to go to a party? And I'm like, sure, let's go. And he's like, it's an absinthe party. And I didn't even know what absinthe was. But we go to this party. And it is in the shell of the old Domino sugar factory. So there's no, on most floors, there's no walls. It's just this giant building where you'd go up to the 8th floor and there's no wall. And then you go up to the 9th floor and there's walls. And there were fire eaters and there were, when you imagine the cool New York party, this was that party. So all of us drank all this absinthe, which I'd never done and probably won't ever do again. And then here's one of the best parts about it. And this will come back, a girl came up to me and we started flirting with this girl, and I was like, you know what? You need to meet my friend Kiffer. I think you're very pretty, but you need to meet my friend Kiffer. And then I introduced her to Kiffer. Now that's going to come back around. Just keep that in the back.
Got it. Planted.
So we do all this. Everybody is just fucked up. We can barely talk. We can barely stand. And then I didn't realize the whole point of this party was they're like, okay, everybody come down. And we go out and we stand on one of those floors I'm talking about where there's no walls. And right across, right there, was one of the silos that they kept something for the Domino sugar factory, this giant silo, and they just demolished it. So you have all these fucked up people at 6 in the morning who have been up all night, and you're standing there, and all of a sudden, you see this thing that was 30 stories high collapse. It was fantastic. So the guy Kiffer that I introduced to this girl, right? 10 years later, I'm in Paris. And I'm in Paris because I'm filming Will Ferrell for this thing I'm working on for Comedy Central, and so we have this little time book. So anyway, we're dicking around in Paris, and we're walking around, and we walk down this alley, not even a main street. We walk down an alley, and Kiffer comes around the corner with the girl that I'd introduced him to, and a minute before, he'd ask her to marry him.
Oh, my God.
How weird is that? How weird is that?
That is, wow. That's powerful. That's powerful. Absinthe, bringing people together. Mm-hmm. Demolition absinthe party. I'll have to make a note of that. Of the next time I throw a party, I'll try to
demolition.
Match that.
That's the word. I kept saying, I couldn't remember the word. Demolition. That's the one. The bourbon, the rye's working.
The rye's kicking in. Good.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I love it.
I feel like I'm just all over the place. Should we just back up and restart this whole thing? I feel like I'm like.
Do you want to start from the beginning? We can say okay. So that means that you're supposed to pour more rye.
Nope, that's bad. Actually, upon thinking about it, I think that's a terrible idea.
No, this is fun. It's not all over the place. It's the stories of who you are and what makes you. And the thing that I love the most about it is that it's a demonstration of how you've achieved what you've achieved, and it loops back to what you said earlier. Is like you don't want to create the stories; you let the stories come to you. Mm-hmm. And you use your imagination to get out there and fill in. And I think everyone can take away a lesson in that of, I'm currently part of what I'm doing on the side of helping a business right now. They're just wanting that checklist and that end result. And I'm like, no, I'm trying to help set you up for the experience so that you feel this and understand this forever moving forward on how to actually do something. And I think a lot of people, a lot of business owners, a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of even people in the creative industry forget what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. They forget that the experience and that connection is the most important part of leaving someone with that feeling of, wow, that was a really nice, cool dude. Or that dude, is good for the world.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think that, I can't remember, it was either... I mean, this is on two opposite. It was either Stephen King or Cormac McCarthy. I can't remember who said this, but it's one of those two. It's one of those two or someone in the middle. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
They were talking about that. They said, I don't write stories. What I do is create characters, and those characters tell me the story. And when I used to direct travel shows, and everybody, they'd want to walk in with like, okay, we need to get this story beat, and this story beat, and this story beat. And when they do that, it's so blatantly obvious and pandering to the audience, where if you create the story before it happens, or if when you're editing a documentary or even a promo, or you're creating a PDF, like a one sheet or whatever about a product, if you go in before you go into it and you already think you know what that story is and you've sketched it out, it's going to be inauthentic. But if you sit and immerse yourself in something and let it talk to you, the story will come out. The story will tell you what it is. That's a risk for people, and specifically it's difficult for me to kind of navigate through business in the sense that, in the business world, is you got to walk up to people who are used to having a list. They're all about this,
Yep.
And they have this list of like, I need to get this done and I need to say this. And if you can be like, dude, you need to just put your list over here. Let's go dick around and play a little bit, and we're going to find it. And when we do, it's going to be real and authentic, and it's going to really connect with people. So that is both what the reason when I do get hired that people appreciate me is that I bring that to the table, but that also makes it very difficult to get hired because I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to lie and be like, yes, spreadsheets are fantastic, and it's very important.
Right.
Like metrics, I don't have no idea.
Yeah.
For me, it's all about story. So it's hard to find, in talking about navigate, kind of going through my life, is I've really had to create my own opportunities because there's not a lot of people who are willing to take that risk about storytelling. People talk about, it's a big buzzword now, storytelling and marketing and whatnot, and it's not really storytelling. What it is I think what is defined as storytelling is really just the manipulation of blocks of information and the order in which they go is what they're talking about, as opposed to really finding, and a narrative and a story doesn't have to be, boy meets girl, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't have to be that. Right. Story, I think, to me, is also about, that goes back to the Maya Angelou thing, is it's about making people feel something. It's about making people experiencing something that is more important than exposition. This rye's just making me. I mean,
it's good. We're taking a lot of gems away because I did want to get into this, and you and I have had some very powerful marketing conversations of, a great example is Mr. Beast. I've just been, if you watch, the world's biggest YouTuber in the world. Oh, obviously, allow myself to introduce myself. So Mr. Beast is the largest YouTuber, and he talks about this of, had he listened to stats and all of those sorts of things, he would have never created the persona of Mr. Beast to begin with. And it took him many years to develop his persona, his character. And even today, with all of the data that he talks about and how he can go into another country and be, within 3 months, the most dominant YouTube channel of a different country and produce videos specific for that country, he always starts with the foundation of character development and story first, and holds true to what it means to be human, what it means to have a great story, what it means to really connect to the audience, and then the data drives that. Whereas I think so many people think about the data first and how can I get the most Instagram users, right? Instead of just being themselves in their own authentic way to actually produce that and then start to put gas on the fire, so to speak.
Yeah. Now, I needed to hear that today, too, because one of the things I'm thinking about doing is kind of like you, is I really want to do I don't know what it'll be, but some sort of thing where I'm not going to get paid, but where I can create content to move people. And I think that's a really great thing to keep in mind.
Yep. It's the cornerstone of this podcast is I've been talking to myself in and out of this thing for probably 3-4 years. I got addicted to podcasting way back in 2013, 2014 when I started listening to Tim Ferriss and those, and then I ran my own business podcast. And then when I got into the tech world after closing down my office, I've been in and out of this, and my monkey brain, I keep flipping back and forth between the logical business side of it and the what does Dave want to do for fun? And after this past couple of months of a whole bunch of projects of different things going different ways unexpectedly, I was like, fuck it. This is the time for Dr. Dave to come out and just, this is the mind of Dave, and I'm going to talk about what I want.
My favorite line, I have two favorite lines in literature. One was from Cormac McCarthy's book, All the Pretty Horses, and it's just a beautiful line where he is riding his horse past the girl he's going to fall in love with, and he says, her eyes altered his world forever in the space of a heartbeat. Extraordinary line. Fantastic. The other favorite line I have is from my brain is this rye is from Tennyson from what's the fucking poem? I am a part of all that I have met. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm spacing.
Do we need to Google?
You've neglected to tell people that I also had surgery a week ago, so I'm also on painkillers and drinking rye. So, but I love that phrase. I am a part of all that I have met. And I think that what you're trying to do really kind of hones in on that. And it's something that's another thing that I've kind of lived my life through, is that these experiences are not actively keeping yourself open to these remarkable experiences is not just so that you can tell stories. It's really about so they become a part of you. And that's actually been a really interesting thing for me. I've suffered from depression my whole life, and then did rescue work at 9/11, and through that got PTSD, and so I've done a lot of therapy. And one of the big things that I've come to the conclusion of is that a lot of my life in my 20s and early 30s was I realized that I'm very good at navigating through the world. I'm very good at navigating through the world, finding the weird shit, getting it attracted to me, soaking it in, knowing when to lean into it and find that story. And what I realized was that it was making me miserable because I was having experiences so that I could tell stories about it. I was having these experiences so I could share them with people to make to give myself value. My first wife, we had a storybook meeting. We got married at Whoopi Goldberg's house. Like, we were poor as dirt. She was a stand-in on Whoopi Goldberg's sitcom, and she saw her and overheard that we were getting married. We were going to get married at City Hall and have meet everybody at a bar or whatever. And Whoopi was like, "Nope, you're getting married at my house. Pay for everything." Like, it was ridiculous. But I realized that this person that I committed my life to, that it was about narrative. It was about creating a story about myself that other people could see to give me value. And what's been really interesting in going through this therapy and dealing with mental illness and how these cycles we get in where mental illness is bad enough as it is, but then we do this shit that just keeps making it worse and worse and worse. And it was a real epiphany for me to realize that I can still have those experiences and do it for the sake of the experience and not for the sake of having a story to tell about it.
Right.
So, like, exercises like this is real important for me because I don't give. I have a hot wife. I mean, look at that. Look at that. I mean, look at her. But here's what's great about this picture. This is the best picture from our wedding, and you can't see my face. I mean, that is pretty much all you need to know, right? That's all you need to know about me.
I'm sure there's much better pictures with your face included.
Oh, no. But I'm in such a wonderful place in my life where those stories are now not about me trying to prove my worth. It's just about me wanting to entertain you, And that's a very different thing for me. And it was a very big thing in my life that these stories we're talking about used to be how other people would define me. And that's no longer the case. I've made an active effort to, I'm sure when we first met and we sat out in the lake and, you remember that when we first got, how great was that? We were at, for the uninitiated, my wife her best friend is married to this plastic surgeon. They have this beautiful place out on the lake, and they let us go out there. We're all sitting out there, and most of the people were sitting up on the beach. It's actually an actual beach, which is weird. It's a lake.
Actual beach with a cabana. Yep.
It's really bizarre. But Dave and I we never really talked, and we just sat out in the water and talked for way too long. We got very wrinkly. But we talked about real shit. And before, in my younger days, I would have been like, okay, I'm going to tell this story, and then I'm going to follow with this story, and I'm going to follow with this story. Because I didn't have the... I didn't think I was enough. And then there's that moment, I think, when you hit your mid-40s, your 50s, if you're doing it right, where you're like, oh, shit, all this stuff that I've been using, these stories, these external things that happen to me, I've been using those to define and to quantify my value. And then to realize that this whole time, the secret was hidden in that interaction, in the sense that none of those things would have occurred unless I wasn't my true, authentic self. So I was doing them for the wrong purposes, or not the healthiest purposes. But it was really a really important thing for me to realize that I don't have to discard all that shit, all those wonderful stories. I just need to realize that as important as the crazy shit that happened to me was my relationship to that crazy shit that happened to me. It makes a lot more sense to me than it probably does to you.
No, I think it's something that we all struggle with. It's, as a physician, you have to go through, you definitely have to go through, every physician goes through an ego trip, where when you're younger, as a physician, people just don't believe you. And so you have to put this, coat of armor on where you have to overtell stories, you have to, highlight certain things, and you become addicted to that thought process of proving how awesome you are as a physician, of oh, I got to work with the Badgers on this, and I did the X Games on this, and I used to run around and tell people that. And so very similar to your path is when I closed on my office, it was a lot of it had to do with this epiphany that I was not being true to myself. That I had achieved my goals and I was living in those goals instead of moving on to the next phase of my life. And that's why I got depressed and why I had gone down the path that I had gone down. And when I came to that same realization that I don't need to tell people about my past, I just need to be. And so it's something that I still struggle with, of course. I think we do until the day that we die of finding this balance. But now it's, people ask, oh, you're a doctor. What kind of doctor are you? And I guess I was a good doctor. Like I don't really, I try not to answer in a typical way because I would much rather have a great conversation with a person rather than having them try to admire me or me force them to admire me, which was very easy to do for me. Very similar to you is when you have the gift of conversation, you can impress a lot of people if you really want to.
Yeah, if you want to, you can pull out that superpower. But what's funny about it is that my favorite job I've ever had in my entire life, when I was a comedian in Austin, I drove a cab on the side. And one of the reasons I drove the cab is I couldn't afford a car. And at the time, for Roy's Taxi, it was $50. You pay $50 for the day, and that was it. That's all they got. You'd put in gas, and however much you made over $50, you got to keep. It was a great deal. So sometimes I'd just get the cab. One time I needed to go to Dallas. So I paid $50, got the cab, made about $60 driving around taking people to the airport and shit, then drove to Dallas. It was great. And then I drove back the next morning by the time I needed to get it. But the reason I loved driving a cab was to not be the person telling stories, to be the person interested in someone else. And that was just, I loved it so, so much. I wish that I could make money and have health insurance being an Uber driver, because I would fucking love it. And I'd be really fucking good at it. I really would. I'd love it.
Well, there you go. We'll find someone after this podcast to start a health insurance group for Uber drivers, and then you can be a professional Uber driver.
I'd be so good at it. So good at it.
Oh, fun.
I need to use the restroom.
Okay.
Do we need to pause,
Perfect.
or can you just edit it later? Or is it we just going to have a... I mean, one thing is when I get up and leave, you can look at my wife's horrible decoration skills. You can see the little creepy little baby,
the little creepy doll up there.
Where I can't figure out where my finger is. There
right on top of the... Yep.
Little baby.
You got creepy doll number 1, creepy doll number 2.
Yeah. It's horrible. And, I mean, my wife has the worst... I mean, look at this. Look at that painting. The hell is that? I mean, the fuck is that? And she has, Georgia, she has the immaculate taste. She dresses like her clothes but then she's just got weird shit like that everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, it's beautiful.
I'm going to go use the restroom. Do you want me to put it on... I don't need to do it. I can just walk away?
Yeah, let's figure this out. This is the joy of podcasting in rhythm.
What if you just put record, always hit record? Are you a fan of Tenacious D? You like the Tenacious D?
Yeah, I love Tenacious D.
Where he says always hit record?
I will break out into probably the worst inappropriate song possible from Tenacious D.
God, that's a bad. Okay.
Yeah, let me just try.
Yeah.
Let's do this. I'll hit the stop button.
Show. I don't give a fuck. I have to pee. That's the way it is.
I'll hit the stop button, and if we end up not being able to record after, it was an amazing podcast. It was an amazing podcast. If it doesn't,
are we done? You're telling me you're done with me. Yeah, you're done with me.
No. We can. I want to give this an honest try. This is new technology for me. It's super fun. I'm going to hit the stop button, and if we lose you,
if not, we're talking a minute, 10 seconds. Anybody can wait a minute and 10 seconds. They can go pee if they're watching it, or if they're listening to it. You can wait for the pause while you're peeing. There's lots of options.
Well, there you go. All right. Well, let's just do that then. Okay. Instead of me hitting stop. We can check out the baby dolls in the background. For your entertainment purposes only. It appears we are back. We are recording. It took away the name of the untitled recording, so we will see.
Maybe we just ruined.
Maybe we just erased our whole podcast. This will be fun.
If you erased it, boy, guys, it was fantastic.
Yeah,
so
you missed
good.
it. Missed it.
Oh, God, it was good. It was so good, so good. Okay, so I'm going to turn the tables on you.
All right, let's do this.
Right? I have some questions for you.
Yeah, love
what
it.
made you want to? You were a chiropractor, right?
Yep.
Yeah. What made you want to do that?
Ever since I was a little kid, basically fourth grade, I have it written that I was going to be an NFL player.
Really?
And I still have the piece of paper. My parents saved it. And it started off with that obsession with science, health, and wellness. And like my whole life revolved around science, health, and wellness, period. Like that's the way my brain operates. By seventh grade, I was reading x-rays. By high school, I was writing research reports. I'd written like a 30-page college-level research review paper on creatine supplementation. I had all the teachers, like I was designing the football programs in high school. I'd already created my own gym and was coaching athletes already, my local athletes. And then that obsession, like, speaking of just following what you want to be doing instead of looking at data, I dove right into biochemistry and molecular biology, and I had no idea where it was going to take me. Everyone was like, shouldn't you sit down with your college admissions person and figure out your career path? And I was like, fuck no, I just love going and like there's chemicals going into this and your body works this way, and like I'm just going to learn about it. And to further prove that point too, it was one of those weird things where before there was the college online systems that you had to that made sure that you had your prerequisites before you could get into the upper level classes. My freshman year, I took the senior level biochemistry class, and I was only one of 4 people out of 90 people that got an A in the class.
No kidding! Wow.
Yeah, and it was after everything after that. I basically I was bored and spent 6 years of undergrad partying because I was. But at any rate, it's how I decided to be an actual chiropractor is I was on the MD PhD route. I was going to go do oncology research. I had already gotten research grants and scholarships for school and things of that nature, so I was well equipped and well deep into that side of the thing. But I went and shadowed some MDs, like some osteopaths and some oncology people, and I noticed one of two things. Your patients either guaranteed to die all the time in front of you, or they're asleep on the table and you're just doing some sort of grotesque like saw and bone kind of surgery, and you have no interaction with them afterwards. I was like, oh, that's the actual reality of being an MD, right? Like,
that's very interesting. Yeah, because I can't even imagine you doing anything that doesn't involve talking to people. Like, I can't.
Exactly.
It just doesn't track.
And I'm too empathetic for the cancer side of it, where knowing statistically that a majority of your patients die right in front of you, like I wouldn't be able to handle that. And so I was actually kind of lost for a little while. I sold health insurance, and I literally had a transformational event where a little old lady, I was selling small business insurance, and I was out at a farm talking to this little old lady at a dinner table. It was the perfect job for me, right? And I was telling her all the benefits of chiropractic because I had gone to a chiropractor my whole life. I'd never thought about going as a profession, but the chiropractor helped me through all my sports injuries. I've now accumulated over 14 broken bones and torn ligaments, but back in the days, chiropractors kept me going. And so I was telling this person on how much money you can save that if you go to a chiropractor up front, that you'll actually reduce your overall health spending because you're living a healthier lifestyle and they prevent things. And she just reached across the table and grabbed my hand, and she's like, you should go be a chiropractor. And I shit you not, like 2 weeks later, I was signed up for chiropractic school. And the funny kicker of that is I had to go, even though I had 185 credits of schooling, because I had a double major in biochemistry and molecular biology, I had to go take a women's studies class as one little missing piece that I needed to get into chiropractic school as like my diversity credit. So I had to go back to summer school. But that's how I got into chiropractic. And really, of course, just the natural fit of I went right into sports medicine, specializing, and then got my master's degree and a whole bunch of other certifications after that, and went right into opening my own business and helping people that way.
And the plot twist to that is the woman who inspired you to do that died of cancer.
Yep. Plot twist, yes. No, I unfortunately never talked to her again. That was just one of those, when you're selling health insurance, of course. But so that's how I got into chiropractic. It's like I consider it a piece of me. It's just natural. I think about it 24 hours a day. Not chiropractic itself, but how the human aspect is, the psychology behind it, the science behind it, the interactions, the vibrations of the earth, the moon floating around us, like all of these things that come together that make us interact in the way that we do. And now at this stage in the game where, I've had 20, 30 years of reading research and doing all these things, I'm at that different level on the scale of being able to look back and actually realize that research is actually not the full path to understanding human bodies. And so now I'm at this level where it's human behavior and psychology and vibrational energy and things of that nature that I've gotten to the stage where I can apply all of that straight science that everyone wants to talk about and get it to the level where it's meaningful. And how do I interact with Todd, and how do I inspire Todd to become healthy, and what are Todd's 1 to 3 steps that he can take? And that is true healthcare.
Suck at it if this is literally.
This is good. This is good. This is right. It's we can have a good conversation.
I'm going to tell you something about you that is that I cherish about you, is that I can't think of an interaction with you where I didn't leave feeling a little bit better about who I was as a person. You make a concerted effort to show people how much you appreciate them, and just notice that is noticed and it is noted. And
thank you.
I think that's one of the special things about you is you make people feel more. It's not that you're blowing smoke up people's asses. You find an authentic way to find something about anyone that they can celebrate about themselves.
Well, thank you. Yeah, that's maybe. Oh, here you go. That's actually what drove me into chiropractic as well. Is I have, ever since I can remember, I have a drive to make people happy around me. I noticed that. I mean, I didn't really have any awareness of that when I was a kid, of course. But as I got older, I look back at my days when I was a kid, and to me, it makes me feel good to make other people feel good. So for me, opening a door came natural, of helping people through the door, and just those basic things in life that tend to be forgotten nowadays in today's society. They come natural to me because you can have this awareness of someone that I don't even know, and you open the door for them, and they give that little smile of like gratitude, and I suck that in like a sponge.
That's
very,
wonderful.
very empathetic.
That's great. That's great.
Well, thank you. I was not expecting to have the tables turned on a podcast. This is normally, I think, in podcasting professions, you don't get the table turned on you until like episode 100 or something. This is this is great.
I don't even know what episode is this.
Technically, I don't know because I'm recording 5 or 6 podcasts this is 1 week.
You're never going to air this. This is never going to air ever.
So we're gonna put you in a strategic placement.
Strategic spot. Ooh.
Yeah. Yep. Because I was anticipating that this was going to be a kick-ass podcast that would be truly representative of where I want to go with this thing. And so this is going to lay the foundation. And so there's an argument, right? Like, we can talk marketing here. This would be really kind of fun and cool. When one launches a podcast, typically you do 3 to 5 episodes as a bunch. And then afterwards, you set your schedule of like once a week or twice a week that you're going to do your podcast kind of thing, or once a month, whatever.
You preloaded at the front to get, you would say, the content can be...
Yeah, so that when you start inviting people, it's not just like, they have a 30-second clip and then they're done. You typically do 3 to 5 podcasts all up front so that people can find the bin of content to see if they resonate with you or not. And so the strategy becomes... Do you send them the first podcast, the second podcast, or the third podcast?
Yeah.
And what do you want to represent? So naturally, we have a good energy. The other guests that I've had, we've had good energies, but they're very different, right? Like I already interviewed a Bitcoin crowd health platform, and it was very much a health insurance conversation, which needs to be had. And what I, ultimately do want to, through these stories, help people through the various ways that I know how. But it's a drastically different podcast than this that I know is not going to be. It's not going to be like the big podcast, right? It's not going to be the 10x podcast, whereas something like this is. So do I put this first, or do I put the second and then put a cool one first, you in the middle, and then like the somewhat okay as the third, and then send out the second one so that people can go back and forward in the thought
fascinating.
process. So those are the weird things that have been going around in my head.
Yeah, because it's similar to, like, I'm doing my job search now, and right now I'm doing all the shit jobs, like the ones that are just like, it's clearly like, and I'm applying to those now. One is because it's, for people who don't know, it's the December 20th, so like nobody's going to be hiring anybody now.
Right.
Happening at the beginning of the year. So what I'm doing is trying to figure out the algorithm. So I have like 7 different resumes, and I'm sending them all to different people, and I'm tracking which ones, because now you can see like they looked at it, and if they looked at it and they don't follow up. So I'm having all these horrible interviews now with jobs I have no desire to do. But I'm really I'm doing it to get information about how people are perceiving me. What's funny about that is the last job I had at the company I was at, which I loved my job, and then it's just this tech layoff. It was just kind of hit everybody. But I don't know if I've told you this, but if you go to my LinkedIn profile, at the time I didn't have the job I have now, which is at the top. So what I had right underneath it is what was at top. And I'd been unemployed for a while because of COVID and nobody's hiring anybody. So I put my job as residence restricted paternal executive. And then I'm trying to remember one of the, like, I think the first thing about, what my responsibilities was, one of them was created agile-based tracking system and delegated all housekeeping responsibilities to team of miscreants, resulting in decrease of hygiene of residents by 274%, like something like that. And what's great is that it went like medium viral. Like somebody saw it, posted on Facebook, and then all these people started looking at it. And but the best part about it was that when I got hired at Zello, the place I just got laid off from, I talked to the hiring manager or the HR person, and I was like, why in the world? Because I did not fit. It was great because the job I applied for was like technical evangelist or something like that. And the owner who's now the founder who's now the CEO, Alex, wonderful guy. We had this, after I interviewed with like 8 people, this describes, I think, my career. He goes, so, he's Russian. He's like, so, Todd, this is not the job for you. What do you want to be? And I was like, I want to be a brand director. He's like, so, you are brand director. But we are going to do trial for 2 months because most people think you are full of shit. And then immediately I was like, I'm in. I'm totally in.
Yeah.
But this is so interesting. I think it's so telling about like modern society and like the information age, is that what actually happened was that the algorithm, when I did the paternal executive thing for COVID, it was all a parody where I was using buzzwords and I was using numbers and all this kind of crap that doesn't normally exist in my resume because that's not how I value my own success, and I'm not going to just change it based on what other people are going to see. But anyway, what happened is that these algorithms of all these companies, I had interviews with Facebook, I had interviews with Twitter, I had interviews with all the big guys, and the reason is that the algorithms picked up these fake numbers that were done as a joke, and they picked those up, and that then brought my resume to the top of the pile. And then they saw it was a joke, and then they became interested in me in what I actually bring to the table. So it was a very interesting process. It was really, really funny.
It's a great example, too, and I think that this is super pertinent. I mean, obviously, you've already set the date, December 20th, that we're recording this on, and, you know, the great layoffs have been happening. Over 60,000 people, I believe, have been laid off in the past 3 months in the tech industry. Yeah. And so now the conversation has been, you know, how do you get past the AI algorithms to get hired? All of these people are flooding the job market. Yeah. And it's just an AI thing that combs your resume, and people need to be aware of this, that there's all sorts of hacks that you can do. I've seen videos and I've seen people get hired after they do this where they put into the header or the footer or the bottom of the page, they make their font a size 3 or something, like, you know, whatever the lowest is, 8 or something, and they copy and paste the job description from employee. Yeah, you copy and paste that in, and you add.
Brilliant.
Yeah, so that it's the exact match of what their AI algorithm is going to be looking for, or theoretically.
I'm totally going to do
and that. You just put, like, this is, just to reiterate, this is your job description, right? So it's not like you're trying to lie or anything like that, but you're trying to do whatever it takes to get over the hurdle. And the best jobs, and you know, really the reality is the best jobs are the ones that you really want. And you have to do these sorts of weird things, like even old school, send them a box of something in the mail and say, hey, I want to get hired, right?
Well, I'm going to tell you what I'm most excited about. I am so excited about this, and it's probably not going to happen. Like, I'm fully aware of it. But I don't know if did I tell you about that? It doesn't matter because whoever's watching hasn't heard it yet. But when I worked at Comedy Central, I had no business. All I'd ever done was Enterprise Rent-A-Car, Disney Cruise Lines. And I flipped a coin. After Disney Cruise Lines, I saved up my money. I traveled around Central and South America for 4 or 5 months and flipped a coin whether to go to New York or L.A. Luckily, it came up New York because I'd met a girl in Cuba who let me live with her when I first moved there. But, that's a whole nother story. She ended up she sent me to Venezuela, and I ended up smuggling out a fake. What's the guy with the long arms? The artist with the long. I can't remember. Anyway, real famous artist. I smuggled out a fake version of his paintings. Got stopped at customs. Horrible. Anyway, moved to New York. Applied for all these jobs, and then sent in my resume because they had a spot open as a production assistant in the promo department at Comedy Central, which means you get coffee and pick up people's dry cleaning. I went for this interview. Got a week later, they're like, we hired internally. Thanks for coming in. And then about a week after that, I got this call. It's like, Mr. Calvert, we were wondering if you might come in to do some freelance producing for us. I didn't even know what the fuck they were talking about. And I was like, yes, absolutely. I went to the library. I looked up what the hell producing was. And of course, in the library at that time, there's not a book on promo producing for a cable network. That doesn't exist. So I went into the first meeting, and there were 3 of us that were doing this rebranding where we took all the old promos and we're putting a new logo on them and whatnot. And still had no idea what I was doing. So I had $200 left in my banking account. I took $100 out, $100 bill, And I went into my editor, because at that time you didn't edit on computers at home. You went to editing facilities, and you'd go, and it was fancy. So I sit in this editing facility, and I walked into the editor, and I said, listen, I don't have a fucking clue what I'm doing. Here's $100. Can you please teach me how to be a producer? And he's like, come on up. And now Andrew, he's one of my dearest friends. He's wonderful. Years later, 6-7 years later at my wedding, the person who hired me, I went up to her, I was a little drunk at my wedding, I was like, did you know that when I got hired, I didn't have any idea what I was doing? And she's like, dude, the second you went to the bathroom, Andrew called me and said, who the fuck is this guy? And I totally thought I'd pulled him over on him the whole time. But she was like, if this guy's got the balls to show up and not know what he's doing, then we're gonna see.
We're gonna give this a try, yeah. Oh,
so cut to now 20 years later, and I'm kind of at this weird end of, I've been in tech and the layoffs, and it's just, it's a difficult world to navigate as a strictly a creative person. And Andrew, my buddy, called me out of nowhere. And I'm not going to tell you what network this was for, but it's a big streaming service. And he called me and was like, listen, we're doing an all hands, all hands for people who don't know is like, the whole company comes together. Everybody's doing this. And like the department I'm in, we need to do a presentation for the all hands. And it's really boring. Literally, one of the slides is about how many legal contracts they created that year. Like, it was just like the most mind-numbing shit. He's like, you got to help me make this interesting. So we did, and I was like, yeah, fine, whatever. I didn't get paid. I just helped him because I owe him so much. He's been really, really generous and lovely to me throughout my life. And so I helped him, and we write it, and then I did the scratch audio track. And a scratch audio track is when it's your fake. It's you read the audio, and then somebody else, the real VO guy, then records it. And lo and behold, they loved my scratch track, so they sent me into a studio to like record it. So I have all the fancy shit and the headphones.
Wow,
and recording it. I sound like a real person. And he sent me a screenshot from Slack of all of the people talking during this video that aired. And what we did is we just made it ridiculous. We made fun of the CEO. We, made stupid jokes about this and how ridiculous Asana is and crap like that. And we just, this Slack messages, he sent me one page. He's like, there are hundreds of these comments. And it was everybody like, that's the new voice. Holy crap. That guy's amazing. That's the voice we need. And it was literally, it wasn't hard. It was literally, I'd start low and then go high, or start high and then go low. That's all I did. Like, that was the extent of what I brought to the table. Anyway, all these people are, like, excited about it. That's my goal. My goal is to somehow twist that into the last person you would ever expect to do VO. I swallow my own words. I always have too much spit in my mouth. Like, I'm the worst person to do VO. But somehow that's my goal. I want to become the voice for this streaming network. That's my new goal, is to do that. Probably not going to happen, but that's my goal.
It's a good goal. It's a good goal. And I would not put it past you. I would say that in this day and age, it's you've already made the step further than anyone else could imagine.
Right. So I'm super excited about that. We'll see. Anyway.
Yeah. Anyways. Well, it gets there.
Well, man, I tell you, dude, this has been fantastic. Once again, you make me feel better about myself. I think when I go back and watch this, it's going to be horrifying. I mean, this, like, there's a lot. Oh, you're looking
good. Yeah.
I got all the things on the side. Right now, I feel great though, and I've also have Ryan me. But by the time I rewatch it, it's going to be difficult.
No, it'll be good. This is the beauty of the new age. Is just be you, right?
Isn't that great? We do live in a pretty special time. We really do. As rough as stuff is, as crazy as there are things that are going on out there, and how disenfranchising just kind of being alive is right now. There's also
and people want authenticity.
Yeah, and I think that's going to bubble to the surface.
Yep.
Yeah, I really do.
Yeah, I've been watching. There's some of the influencers that I follow, and they talk about data, right? Like as the piece of is this content going viral or not viral, and the crappy, like they're not upkept, they're sitting on a couch or they're walking around, they almost always get better data, more views than the high production. I had a friend spend, I think, like $50,000 on building a podcast studio, and he made it so fancy that his viewership went down. And it's just like,
absolutely. Yeah, one of my favorite things to watch is the videos where it's I don't know if you've seen them, but it's like, I love scare videos. And it's funny, I on my to-do list is to be like, why is it funny to see people get scared? And why do we get mad when we first get scared? And then we think it's hilarious. But anyway, I don't know if you've seen it, but it's where people do oh, I feel good. You seen that, where they scare people by playing the beginning of oh my God. So funny. And it's very interesting, though, because once it became popular, you can very easily, smell it. Which ones are real, like where they really got somebody, and then the ones where they're like, okay, you pretend like you scare me, and then I'm going to do this funny thing. And it's it's both sad and so interesting to see how people can sniff that out, that authenticity. Where when it's not authentic, people can really tell. Like, I really believe that, and I think we're going to move closer and closer to that. Yeah,
as all of this stuff, I mean, when I first started podcasting was a drop in the bucket of media, and now, I mean, we're like the bucket's half full on podcasting, and because it's this authentic delivery, and you don't need 100 million followers to feel like you're being successful in podcasting. Like, if I connect to 10,000 people, I'm sure there's 10,000 people that would love to hear this type of exact content, and it inspire them and change their life, right? And this is, I go back to marketing basics on this, where if you wanted to sell a product to a person with a mohawk and a dog tattoo on their arm, you will be able to find 10,000 of those individuals. Right? Like, there's just in today's day and age, we can now reach those 10,000 people with mohawks and a dog tattoo on their arm.
Oh, that's really interesting. I can really refine that. The great thing about that is that out of those 10,000 people, I guarantee that 100% find that creepy.
Yeah. Your little doll. Yep.
100%. My wife is the best thing in the world, but that is just horrific.
It makes for great video content, though. It really does. Like, and it's kind of funny that you say that too. Is I was debating. I'm just shoved into a corner of my house, and this was originally just a white wall, because when I've been doing Zooms, you just put the virtual background on. But with this program, Riverside, you can't do a virtual background. I'm like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do a crooked sign that is just kind of loosely hanging in the background to make it look like I'm just like, really basic.
I can't read what it says. What does it say?
I'm debating whether or not to tell people and let people guess, but it's it is a meaningful piece of my history on what got me to get out of my depression and get out of my funk and my burnout, which is memento mori, which is the Stoic philosophy behind everyone must die. And if you practice death, if you visualize death, if you think about your death and all the ways that you can die, that today you start living a little bit better. And so this poster was given to me by my wife as a very meaningful gift of, I read a lot of Stoic philosophy. I try to live by Stoic philosophy. So I thought that, the Mind of Dave, this whole concept is really like, even the logo, there's a whole bunch of Vitruvian Man, Leonardo da Vinci, third eye concept into my logo. There's lots of meaning behind these little things that I want to bring to people, that, Stoic philosophy being one of them. And so memento mori is just that constant reminder that we must die, and therefore then you live in the now, so that if tomorrow is not guaranteed, we can be happy today knowing that we gave it our all.
Wow. Look at that.
Yeah. And I wanted it to be a little crooked and in the background.
Right. Well, just you nailed the crooked. You got it all down. Yep. And the crookedness is very authentic.
Yep.
Very.
Yep.
You nailed it.
Yep.
Wow, what a beautiful way to wrap that up.
Yeah, I appreciate you. This was a great podcast. I'm glad that we can get on and share all of this. The stories are super helpful and enlightening, and can help guide a lot of people in their life. And really, just get inspired, get out there and live the way that we all want to. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. I mean, it's the world we live in, we don't really listen to each other. We really yell and say things very loudly, and but we don't listen to each other. And it's nice to have a little moment carved out in time to get to do that.
Yep. Beautiful. Well, thank you very much for all the listeners. Our show notes will be on Mind of Dave. Is there any links or anything that you would like to send people to? Maybe the little horror links. You want to send people to a horror link?
Horror link? Oh, with the I feel good. It's very funny. I would definitely suggest looking that up. Let me see if there's any links. No, I have none. Not a one.
Okay.
I have nothing to self-promote. Nothing.
There you go.
Hopefully this airs after I've become the voiceover artist of whatever that place is.
Yep. Perfect. Well, with that, thank you, and we will to another time.